Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Now, let's talk about another important issue here. I mean, we live in a world that we must understand what this world is all about. Now, we live in a fantasy world, and I don't know if my generation was the last generation of fantasy worlds. Of course, my parents came from really kind of tough neighborhoods. They were able to move out of that thanks to basically the Korean War and the boom that came after that, and the great place America was in the basically from the late 40s up to about 1980, where everything started to change radically. Because the increase, particularly in real estate prices, without the increase in salaries. But we have to fully understand of what is really going on here and what's happening in life. But life really has never changed. But there seemed to have been some sort of delusional reality from my parents' generation. And because they were able to move in kind of genteel circles and they got the low middle class rewards, and a lot of people who were smart, unlike my family, were able to make lots of money buying real estate, getting into businesses, not really working for corporations. But if you did, the prices of everything was good. Cars, $5,000-$6,000, houses in Southern California we're talking about here, $40,000 So, and at even the mediocre salaries of then, everybody could afford things pretty well. It's just really how much money you made, you could get fancier stuff, fancier cars, fancier houses, etc. So there was a real stupidity in these basically Korean War type veteran people that were out there that lived in this pretty fake reality that was there after the Korean War. Of course, we couldn't wait too long after World War II to get into another world war that we lost again. So, as we have to understand that. So, but what is the world all? The world has really never changed. And it never will change because the basic principles and the caveman reality we live in, the fact that hoodlums run the world and always has. What do you think Genghis Khan was? A philosopher? I will go and bring civilization to the rest of the world. Oh, is that right? People that didn't even bathe because they didn't want to go near running water because that was evil. So they never bathed and they just were loaded with fleas and everything else. But I guess that made them good fighters because they must have been pretty pissed off. So his goal was to bring civilization. Of course, Genghis Khan, who raided the great libraries of the Middle East, particularly in what was then Iraq, and they claim that the Tigris River there. You could almost walk across it with all the scrolls that he threw into the river. Great Oriental philosophy. No, these are hoodlums. They went to civilized places, killed the people that made things because they weakened themselves by being productive, so that these guys could come around and rape and rob and hold them hostage. Is there anything different in the world today? Is there anything different in everything? Because really the world is just run by a bunch of gangs. You got a Russian gang, you got an American gang, you got European gangs, and we go all around the world and they're basically gangs. And a lot of the gangs in other places run the gangs in other places. So this is the way it works. So there's nothing new there. And neither has it ever been. The great question is, why is man intrinsically evil, and why is he destroying his environment and destroying his neighbors? Nobody sees any value in working together for a unified goal of higher belief systems and really judging a person, or not even judging a person, but giving a person the possibilities to become a higher spiritual person, which is the only thing you can really take with you. You can collect all the gold you want. When you're dead, you're dead. Now, I've never seen that gold turn into energy and go up with the dead person, or as we should say, go down with the dead persons. So, I mean, you have a very limited time here, and people want to collect all these toys that really are valueless after very momentary joy that having a possession gives you. Having a nice car, having this, well, yeah, there's a certain joy in that, but it's also very momentary. Just as everybody's so possessed with sexuality, which is so momentary. And again, you can't take that with you. So, the bottom line is that only spiritual empowerment can you take with you. So, we have to be careful of that. But what do you do when you're here? Now, everybody is thumping on you. If you're different, they don't want you to get ahead in life. They want you to be one of their clones. And if you stand up against them, they're going to try and destroy you. And this is not only the people in power, as the so many arguments I got into with so-called authority figures, particularly the scum of the barrel, the worst, stinkiest scum there is, the teachers. But who enforces the teachers? Well, doesn't the administration protect teachers? I had teachers that were drug addicts, that had some sort of medical condition, I think a very bad back, and he was on pain pills. The guy was a total lunatic, yet they let him stay in a classroom. Other people came out and made political statements that had nothing to do with that class. In a very sensitive time, in the middle 70s, people coming out against the war in Vietnam. Now, that's not the issue of going to a geography class. 50,000 people died in that war. To make your comments there with people that had relatives dead is the epitome of that. But did the hippy-dippy, pot-smoking high schoolers stand up to the bullshit teachers? No. I stood up. And they attacked me, the class members. I expected that from the scumbucket teachers. But the whole idea is that this is the reality that's going on in your world. So, but what does this real world really come down to? Really, what does it really come down to? I mean, you can really look at childhood development and you'll understand how things progress in a very particular manner. Now, pretty much the first thing you ever get from society, no matter what, is not the fact that, oh, I got this great friend next door, I met a friend at school, and we got together and played a game, we shared toys. Is that what you remember? No, you remember the punks that run the schools, that the impotent administration. But these punks are the people that go into the military, they become police officers, they become politicians. These kind of scum that are based and coddled for all their lives in a system that should be crushing them is ridiculous. If you're a kid, you're allowed to assault, even close to murder another kid, and you get off with it? What does that have to do? You know you're not supposed to do that. These people should be put into children prisons. They should be rehabilitated. This should never be tolerated. Yet it is. And constantly. So the point is the first thing you're going to learn in life is that you've got to, of course, if you don't, then you're going to be these scared kids that run home all the time being chased by the hoodlums. You learn that you are going to be physically attacked, and this seems to be okay with society. Now, I think anybody that physically attacks another kid should be immediately grabbed and put into prison and rehabilitated. If they can't be rehabilitated, I don't care whether they're 8 or 10, they should be executed. They have broken society's laws. They have terrorized children that will never get over this. The bottom line is the first thing you should do if you have children is you got to make sure they learn how to fight, armed and unarmed, how to use weapons, how to use guns, and of course your martial arts taught by a real instructor. You can find one that isn't, I'll go take your shoes off and let's wear bathrobes. Yeah, I always fight with my shoes off and a bathrobe on. That's not fighting. That's a business. These people know nothing about it, and most of these people are pretty wimpy to begin with, and most of them can be taken out very, very easily. And of course, they're so stupid, it wouldn't be too difficult. That's not warrior training, that's exercise. So the point is that everybody needs to do that, but your children and yourself should learn how to use weapons, guns, knives, clubs, anything that is also legal, everything from stun guns to anything else that you can carry legally, tear gas, etc. And you got to use these things. You don't keep them in your purse with a little thing like it's lipstick and then pull it out. No, you use it all the time weekly. You'd be buying these things constantly and learning how to use them. in a defensive posture so that you're able to use these of what happens. And there's specialized training that you do with this. But nobody does that. They'll get tear gas, or they used to have to get a little permit for it and everything else. You're not going to run into that. If someone attacks you, you're going to be shaking like a leaf. You're going to be scared to death. What you're trained in proper military situations is to act with instinct. You don't think of fear. You think of what you have to do. And of course, people that go to gun ranges and stand there and shoot at paper targets when everything is cool, baby, that's not what you're going to be into. And most likely you're going to be shaking like a leaf. You're not going to be able to hit anything, particularly hold guns up. That's not how life is. So proper training is important, but you've got to get down to the fact that it's either you, your wife, or anything else. I made sure I taught my wife how to use pistols in a combat situation. And that isn't holding in front of you shooting at a paper target. Nonsense. It's not how it works. I'm not going to go into that training right at this particular moment. But the point is that's what you need to do, and everybody should be armed and ready to use their weapons at an instant notice, and nobody is. Your children need to be taught how to do these things. Your children should know how to use weapons. They should know how to use efficient weapons. Guns, shotguns. And they should be using them on a weekly basis so you keep honed into how to do these things. Not keep a gun in the closet and then when something happens, well, how do you use it? All these things have to be done and have to be done properly because that's the world we live in. And it's never changed. There is no single pacifist society that has ever been surviving anywhere in the world, unless they are tiny communities like the Amish and other ones who are protected by the greater community. They certainly wouldn't have survived the rampage of Attila the Hun or all the other invaders out there. So these are fake people living in a fake world, believing in a fake book. And of course, they would be goofball Germans. So the whole idea is, more delusional psychopaths bred from that particular part of the country. So the whole idea is that we have all these situations that we have to deal with. So, well, that brings us to the point of what do you do? Now, the point is that obviously we don't live in a world. Now, the only people who can get revenge are crooks, corrupt officials, and of course the corrupt police department, there is no such thing as police. It's all corrupt. So you can't go around shooting, beating, hitting people, period. Of course, if you have your own personal little gang or organization, well, maybe you can put a strong foot forward, but that's for another time and place. But ultimately, you can't take physical action. Obviously, you want to do things to protect yourself, and most of the time, and there are strong laws that pretty much back you up for self-defense, even in Pussy, California, which has bad gun laws and everything else. If somebody enters your house, you legally can kill them. Home invasions, you just kill them. That's a law. It's legal. So, but of course, you have to be careful. And you don't want to really go around beating people up, stabbing them, shooting them, etc. This is going to cause you great problems. And of course, this is always the question. You don't want to lose your life, meaning your freedom, and be convicted of a crime or even murder, is going against the fact of why you're protecting. You're protecting yourself so you can survive, but surviving in prison is not surviving. So you have to be very careful. Of course, having a good support group stops all of that. But that's, again, another issue. So the whole idea is that we're living in a whole new reality, but it's not a whole new reality. Do you think the Romans survived because they were peace-loving and had a great society? No, they were armed, well-disciplined fighters, and that's how they conquered a huge part of the world with a tiny army. And of course, who did they fight against? The Mongols, Genghis Khan, the other ones. What did they do? Well, first of all, these people attacked their own people and took it over. Just because they were better fighters and because they were good with horses and bows. These were the tanks and the machine guns of their time. So what they did is they were able to put that together and just take whatever they wanted. Why work? Just take it from somebody. It's much easier than doing anything else. So, and of course, that's the nature of the world today. It's all about taking the vicious, evil, strong, who are well armed, take over everybody else who isn't. So you couldn't disarm your military if you wanted to. As much as I am not a military supporter, and that budget needs to be cut by probably 70%, there's no getting away from the fact that we have to have some sort of military, or somebody will just march in and kill everybody. That's the fact of life. So that puts you in a militaristic organization, whether you like it or not. The Romans were smart enough to use all the people they conquered as their soldiers. And of course, they did everything right. That's why they ran the world for 600 years. And really were never conquered. They conquered themselves through infighting and civil wars. Certainly the boobalicious so-called invaders from other parts of Europe certainly didn't take the Romans in their prime. It's just nonsense. There was nothing left of Rome when they came there. So the whole idea is that all of the things that go with that are part and parcel of what is going on in the world. So what does that mean? Now, as a person who is a radionicist and believe in the radionic temple, so to speak, this is your basic belief system and what you follow as a tradition, you have to understand there's two sides of everything in life. It's not that you want to spend time doing that, but justice is very important. Justice and retribution is all what life is about. And the longer you let your enemies get away with it, the stronger they get and the more they will victimize you. So everybody needs to get into using retribution and justice energies. Now, we've come out recently with a new kit, which is a pretty effective little tool. We're going to be getting more into radionically using these as well. And there's many of these things coming out. We don't have anything available to the public at this time, but those who are all access and Patreon members will have a chance to get more of the advanced tools as time comes. We can only build so many of these things, and they should only go to at least people that are putting up the face of it being supportive. So, as all of these things go, you need to be aware of that. So you, as a person, need to take active protection in your life. Now, the greatest protection, as the old cliche goes, the greatest defense is an offense. You've got to keep your enemies that will not stop attacking you, as so many of these won't. They're dedicated to their evil ways. Unless you are disrupting them as well. You have to attack them. And it's not really attacking. That's why I use the term justice and retribution. The highest form of positive work is attacking enemies, getting rid of evil. No, it's not love and healing. No, it's destroying evil. And of course, this has been taken out of you by a gutless garbage religions that most of them preach this, particularly the pseudo-Christians who have murdered millions and millions of people under the name of Jesus, including the Inquisitions, who tortured people horribly to death just to steal their possessions. How Christ-like. So the whole idea is that all of this kind of nonsense, and of course, due to that mythological story, of course, Peter was a tax collector. Oh, is that how Jesus made his money? So the whole idea is that all the stuff that goes with this stuff is just nonsense. But we have to get out there and we have to make sure in your life that if someone is hassling you, and I don't care who it is, and I don't even care to a certain extent how minor it is. If somebody's going to be throwing negative energy at them, you thump them. You get your justice tools out and you make sure you're sending their energy back to them and adding a little whipped cream on top of that. And you do this as a consistent practice. Now, you should be doing practices to protect yourself, keep your chakras open, keep yourself uncrossed. But if you're going to have enemies attacking you all the time, you're just going to be sitting there wiping the stuff off. It's never going to end. You've got to put up a shield. And a shield is not a force field that things bounce off of. That's only one part of a protection understanding. Protection has to come from aggressively sending energy back or sending known enemies disruptive energy so they are too busy in their conflicting life to bother with you. One of the problems that I've noticed is that, all of these people that do attacks on someone, evil people, they're very dedicated and they don't stop. You think you can protect yourself and everything else, and protection works, 98% of the time. About 2% of the time, a little bit of the goo gets through, and that kind of upsets the apple cart. It usually, if you're doing proper protections, is something that doesn't cause major problems, but you're going to have things that just don't work out. Why are the energies negative around you? Well, if you're having problems, or maybe you got a little bit sick and the negative energy comes in, well, it's going to compound and make things worse. How do you stop all this stuff? Well, you have to get out there and be proactive. So you have to do a lot of offensive work and go after known people. So anybody who's sending negative energies to you is part and parcel of what's going on. So you have to be active. There is no such thing as sitting in a castle and defending yourself. From what I understand, there's never been a single historical bunker that hasn't been penetrated. Certainly not in medieval times. All castles can be taken down over time. Even if you're just starving the people out and they run out of water and food, you still can't stay in there. So ultimately, castle sieges and other things were stopped by the people inside coming out and fighting the people who were besieging them. It's as simple as that. So, this is part of life and things that we have to learn. So you have to have a warrior mentality. Not only do you have to be prepared for physical combat and for protection of yourself and your family, but you have to be energetically in the same type of mode. So if you don't have some sort of justice and retribution tools, you are at a disadvantage. And secondly, you got to use these. This is a high art. Now, there's always been the case, and this has been something going around circles. A lot of this started in the 80s and 90s with Wicca in particular, who was kind of got screwy different belief systems in terms of the way they think. But, Wiccans who claim that, the threefold, whatever you send back, you get threefold. And all of this tended to be the most aggressive, nasty people out there and would do most of the cursing. And, of course, people that go into alternative practices, particularly magical things, are kind of bent people. They're different. And this is good and bad. But the point is they're easily corrupted. And they're seeking power for the sake of power. And anybody that steps in their way or anyone they want to get after, they go after. Plain and simple. So, this is, but what you send out, you get back. And this was the whole idea of, it's going to bounce if I send out this energy. First of all, that's misinterpretation, like so many things in life are. So if you were to kill a mass murderer, a dictator, or save somebody on the street, maybe you had to shoot him. Pulled a knife on somebody, was stabbing that person. So you happened to be armed, so you shot him. You get negative energy back? Is that bad? Well, in my mind, you get a huge bolt of white empowering light to you because you just taken out a scum bucket. And you just eradicated them. And you have to be careful about frontier justice because you got to make sure you're in the right, and this can be very difficult. But let's keep it simple. The bottom line is that this is, the only time energy, people are always worried about energy coming back on them because this is what you've been brainwashed, particularly by a weak-kneed cowardice church who wants your money, but they don't want anything of it, and they want their cabals of perverse, evil deviates that are pretty much in all church systems to run things. And what they want to do is keep you impotent. That's why the Romans started the Christian religion, because it told you, forgive and forget, bend over. So the whole idea is that that's how it was set up to do, to control the frontiers, which they were having trouble with, mostly because of their own corruption again, but that's another story. And a lot of bad decisions like all these people do. But the whole idea is that this was the reality of moving into that. And it just suited everybody's purpose. And of course, the Romans figured out, our gods really didn't do much for us. Let's get a god in there that other people can bow to us for. But let's not forget, the Romans, of course, did animal sacrifices and magical rituals. You don't hear about that, or they don't talk about this before they went into battle and everything else. So they were empowering themselves magically as well as doing military operations, which they're basically unbeatable. unless they were tricked, and that's another story. But the whole idea is that all of that goes into that is part of the reality that we have to face. This is part of it. So if you're working on bringing prosperity to yourself and you're working on keeping yourself well and protecting yourself, well, you're ignoring the fact that, a couple of miles away, a tidal wave is coming. And you feel great, and you get your windows nailed down. Oh, I'm protected. Yeah, until the wave hits and it knocks you out. You can't live like that. You have to be actively. When you know there's a threat, you do something about it. And of course, there's always a threat, and you always have to be working in this area. So anybody that gives you a hard time, whether it's the waitress, the checkout person, your teacher, your neighbor, you thump them. Now, hopefully you're working from a high Gnostic reality, meaning you're working from higher consciousness, not because you're jealous or or it's your fault, You're doing something terrible on your property and the neighbor complains, so you say, well, he's complaining. Well, you shouldn't have been doing that. He had right to complain. It's hard to think like that. So think about what you're doing and think about how you're doing it as well before you just willy-nilly attack someone. But the whole idea is that the more you attack people who give you problems, you're pushing their energy back. You're sending back their energies. What does that mean? Well, two things happen there. First of all, it's a huge protective element to it. It means you're lessening your cross condition. The negative energies that are thrown on you are not surrounding you. You're pushing them back just by the fact of using aggressive attack methods. The other thing that happens is those bad people get some of their negative energy back. If everybody got their negative energy back they're putting out, maybe, and of course this is always a problem with any kind of justice rituals, is nobody really learns. The only thing they learn is when their name is on a tombstone and they're taking a dirt nap. That's pretty much how most people learn that are bad people. They keep going on getting away with it, so that's the only thing they understand. But the bottom line is that when you're protecting yourself and sending back their negative energy, they get hit with it. So hopefully they wake up, or they figure, oh well, I get bad energy when I do bad things, so maybe I shouldn't do bad things to that guy. I'll do it to this guy, who is unarmed, helpless, and being easily affected. So this is something that happens all the time that people have to be aware of. So the issue of having energies come back upon you because you're doing something wrong is a total misunderstanding of what's going on to begin with. If you feel that way, then you shouldn't do these things because you will psychically draw negative energy back on you if you think that way. You only do something when you're 100% sure that you're in the right. Plain and simple. Did that person deserve that? So when you're 100% in the right, then you do it. And it's always good not to do things too hot-headedly. So if it's someone you know, think about it for a few days and make sure. If it's just a random person, but, I've got to the point now that, someone sends me a nasty email or leaves a bad comment, I write your little name down and you go on my justice altar. You got negative energy, and I wouldn't really give a damn what happens to you anyway. But the nerve of you to send that to me is insulting, and it is an attack. And everybody should do that. The more you keep sending it back, the less crossed you will become. The more energy you take in, now if you got 10, 20 people sending you even minor negative energy, and this could be, comments on YouTube or emails or whatever you're getting into, or whoever is sending you this energy, and there's a multiple, well, this is an attack. And if you have enough, it's a strong one. Guess what happens? This is where cross conditions come from. So, obviously, you want to try and stay out of this. The best way is stay away from bad people. Well, on this planet, where do you go? Everybody's bad to a degree. So, most likely, your family is thumping on you all the time. And that doesn't mean that you can't thump them as well. If you have a negative family member, well, you make sure you send the energy back to them as well. Whether it's mommy, daddy, sister, brother, uncle, whatever, get them out of your life. And in the meantime, thump them. Plain and simple. So this is how life is, and this is how things go. And the more you allow yourself to be victimized, the more trouble you're going to have. Now, as I said, if you have some, and this is built into a lot of people, I've heard this for years and years, that you're going to get something back. As I said, this was traditionally taught within magical circles. That was very popular because the major type of magic in the 80s and 90s was some sort of Wiccan religion that was out there for a while, which is nature religion that's supposed to be balanced. Of course, none of the people in those movements are balanced. Matter of fact, usually they're very unbalanced, and they're in there for power and greed. But you used to hear that all the time, this pseudo preaching. So, Wiccan organizations wouldn't even take my ads. The Circle News, which was a big paper, I guess they're probably, I don't know if they're still out there or not. I don't take your ads. You're too dark. I'm dark? So, yeah. Well, you're just a coward. So all of these things were a particular problem, and they didn't like the organization back in the 90s. But the point is these are weak-kneed people, and they were the first ones, when they're criticized, to attack everybody really very quickly and easily. Very vindictive, very nasty. They turned on their own people, etc. All this stuff is part and parcel of what's going on. So we go with all that stuff, and what does that mean? So you make sure you're 100% right. If you need to think about it for a while, do that. Once you have committed to the process, you never turn back and you never doubt. That's where you draw psychic energies back onto yourself, or spiritual energies. You curse yourself because you feel bad. I shouldn't have done that. You know, the problem with this world is not that we don't have enough love in this world. This has always been the reality out there, which is, you hear this from the pundits. It's so fashionable. Oh, all we need is love, love. You know, and all these bullshit songs that we've heard for years. And of course, everybody says, well, you need more love in life. Well, I'm not sure what that means, but we certainly have plenty of love. I mean, people love everything. They love their pets, you know, the stupidest people. I love my country. Oh, you love a political system. Unbelievable. So the whole idea is that you love this. I love pizza. I love beer. I love bourbon. So the whole idea is, what does all that mean? You know, we throw in that love too much. What is all these T-shirts with the heart on it? I love New York. You love New York? Well, you really messed up. But the point is, whatever city that is, you are stoned, dude, or should be. So the whole idea is that you love something. So, I mean, we love everything. People love all the time. And, of course, people love their own. They'll go out and murder, rape, and rob everybody else, and they've done this. But then they come home to their family, and, oh, we love you. You know, it's amazing, all these people who were torturers, murderers, even up to this day, of course, they all went home to their families at night after they were torturing and murdering people that were not their families. Oh, I love them. You are scum. My family is good. You know, just like I always give this an example of the gypsies. The gypsies, of course, will steal and do anything possible to non-gypsies. But don't do it to a gypsy, because you'll be in trouble. They'll hang you. You'll disappear. They'll kill you. But they have no problem doing everything to everybody else. But their own clique and their own people, they don't. So again, they love their own. They don't do it with anybody else. This is the kind of world we live in. So it's not about not having love. The problem is that people who are problems are never eradicated. And this has happened throughout. Now, the Romans held the world for 600 years because they eradicated their enemies. They'd go in and kill an entire city of people. So they didn't have babies and women to come after them later. They didn't have any arguments over who owned the land. All of that was done. I always tell people, you know, the opening of the famous Godfather movie really shows it. Now, in the opening of that, they saw, was it Corleone? I haven't watched it in many, many years. But the bottom line is that I think it's Corleone who they killed his father or something, and he went away to America or something. And the wise old person said, hey, don't let him get away. He will come back and get you. And that's exactly what happened, because you left one of them alive. This is how life is in general. So if you don't have that type of a policy, then you're going to have the same enemies cause the same problems that they always had. And pretty much if you look at history, you can look at the realities of the different problems we've had through the last few hundred years, and it's the same people causing all the same problems. Even within 5 to 10 years after a first problem, where millions of people were died, like World War I, because that wasn't handled properly. So this is the way everything goes in the reality. So nothing is ever finished. So the point is that you have to, and these aren't negative energies. These are white light, positive, constructive energies. If you eliminate a toxin, is picking up trash bad? Is getting rid of toxic chemicals properly? Is that bad? Well, you're destroying them. You're hurting the bad chemical. This is going to bring something back on you. You're destroying. No. What kind of idiot thinks like that? Well, what idiot thinks like that is a church that wants to make you weak and dependent upon them, and who internally is some of the nastiest scum on the planet. So the whole idea is when you do stuff like that and you get rid of negative people, chemicals, whatever, you're doing high-level positive work. And now if everybody did this, the world would change. But nobody does this. And as he said, the nerve is that everyone's been brainwashed that this is a negative reality, and that you shouldn't be doing that. And it's amazing how people draw lines of what is a combatant and a non-combatant. And I did a little lecture on that, which I removed because it's way too advanced for most people. But the bottom line is there are no non-combatants in life. So the whole idea is you have to get out there and take care of yourself and make sure those people who are pushing their negative energies on you and the rest of this. So they're just not victimizing you. They're just not sending you garbage. They are sending everybody garbage, and they are attacking everybody, and they're causing great negativity. And the negativity they cause may be somebody you run into who gives you negativity because they're being victimized by this person. Now, the only way to stop this vicious circle is to make sure that everybody gets back what they send. Good people you help. Bad people you step on. You thump them. That's how life is. And there's no mercy in thumping. You do whatever is necessary to eliminate them from your particular reality in a proper way. That's what using magic and metaphysics and technologies are all about. Because physically doing these things is going to get you in greater trouble unless you're defending your life, your family's, or someone else's. And you have to be very careful there. So, but it's an attitude in life. What's your attitude? So, we need to keep this fully understood, and everybody needs to understood that there is no negativity from going after bad people. You get nothing but positive energy back from that. We have to be. Now, if you're doing something wrong and you feel you're doing something wrong, then you shouldn't be doing it. And you know, everybody knows what's wrong or right. You may be jealous for someone. You may not like them for a jealousy reason. You know that. Everybody knows what's right or wrong. It seems to be intrinsically built into the human characteristics, but it's something that nobody follows. Nobody pays attention what's right or wrong, but they know what's right or wrong. And no matter where it is, people have their right or wrong belief systems, which generally come down to very simplistic understandings of life. It's amazing how in prisons they have their own little codes of conduct, which are basically based on the regular codes of society. The society that put them away in prison is the kind of codes that they follow in prison, with a few variances. It just amazes me, or wherever you're at. But there is no such thing as a defense that will protect you. You can't stay in your castle. You have to come out, and you have to fight those who are besieging your castle directly, and not just think you're going to build a stronger and stronger castle that will withstand more and more attacks. It just doesn't work like that. Nor is it effective to keep you uncrossed. So part of uncrossing and keeping yourself uncrossed is to get rid of that negativity. What do you do with that negativity? You send it back to the people who are sending it to you. And we're going to go into this with more details and practical techniques and so forth in the future as well. And we do a lot of this stuff on All Access and, of course, even Patreon. So the real techniques and other things are given to those people who guess what? Support the good people and are willing to be a participant in a better world and a better place. And you do this by joining Patreon and joining All Access and supporting this organization so we can develop these to higher levels, produce proper products for everybody, or at least for a select few, and start changing our own little world. You can change the world. If everybody got together to do what is very straightforward and stop their own personal corruptions and took care of bad people, the world would change very easily. The point is that people love corruption. They love to be part of the gang. And that's the bad gang. And that's the way the world is. And the way to counter that is to constantly be seeking your own personal judgment in a balanced Gnostic viewpoint, and your life will be balanced and work well. With that, until next time.